The church needed communications, and the Second Vatican Council instructed the lay people to use means of social communications to communicate the gospel. And so we had an opportunity to bring EWTN programming to the area through the radio station, and we worked to get at least one station going, and now we have four. So it's that was our inspiration, really, as a result of the exhortation of the Council Fathers. The founders of EWTN, Mother Angelica, who she had an inspiration herself that she started shortwave radio, and she was inspiring people like me around the country to get radio stations, local radio stations, and take the signal from the satellite and broadcast it locally. So it really was Mother Angelica, her inspiration. She has since passed away, but she was an inspiration not just for me, but for everybody like me around the country who started Catholic radio stations. When I was in 5th grade, my voice changed, and it's been this deep since, and people even in grammar school would tell me that I had a good voice for radio. I did have an interest in radio. I majored in broadcasting at Seton Hall University, radio and television. My inspiration, though, was to be a Yankee broadcaster. I wanted to be a broadcaster for the New York Yankees and sit in the booth with Phil Rizzuto. That didn't work out. God had other plans, and it's always been a part of my life since probably 5th grade. We are a nonprofit, commercial-free operation, so we depend on donations to support everything that we do. And in the beginning, it was very difficult because just to get our first radio station, we had to raise about $1.2 million to buy it. And I did find people who were generous, who donated to us, and just to get the station on the air. But then the monthly operating costs are met through donations of listeners. In the beginning, if people don't know about the radio station, you don't have as many listeners and you don't have as many donors. So those days were a little tough. We're a little better now. We have 4 stations. Awareness has been made. We go around to parishes and share the story of our radio stations, and that we have more listeners now, so that means we have more donors. But we do have certain times of year, like the summer, when donations drop off, and that gets a little touchy for us. But in the beginning were the harder times. God has been good to us, and we have been able to been sustained pretty regularly since then. In the beginning, it was a lot harder because it was basically just a one-person operation. I was doing everything. We have since been blessed to have 2 more employees working with me who kind of split up the responsibilities. But because of technology, these days it's a lot easier to run than it used to be in the old days, even as far as editing programs or recording programs. I can operate the station from my home. I can operate the station from an app on my phone if I have to in an emergency. So it's a lot easier now because of technology and automation. But in the beginning, when we first started 10 years ago, it was a lot more difficult. But things have eased up now, so we've gotten the hang of it, and we're doing pretty good at it.
So it's a little bit funny, my story of how I became involved in domestic church media. I was working full-time in campus ministry and listening to Jim Manfredonia on my way to work, also the Rosary. So just the timing of my commute worked out perfectly to hearing Jim and hearing the Rosary. And it was really a great source of strength in my faith at that time. You know, I was especially doing work in the church. But as I kept listening to Jim, I noticed he was never talking about World Youth Day. And I had gone to World Youth Day in 2008 with the Diocese of Camden, actually, to Sydney, Australia, and had such a powerful experience. And I wanted more people to know about it, and I wanted more people to come. So flash forward to 2011, driving in my car, listening to Jim, not hearing him talk about World Youth Day, getting a little bit annoyed because I feel like the church needs to tell more young people about this great opportunity so that they can experience really God through this worldwide event. So I called up Jim one day at work, and I said, hey, and he said, good afternoon, Domestic Church Media. I said, yeah, how come you guys aren't talking about World Youth Day? And I think he was a little taken off guard. My delivery wasn't the best, I guess you could say. But I got my point across that I just wanted somebody to mention World Youth Day, let people know that they can attend, let people know that they can sign up, invite people, especially since this was Catholic radio. And it was happening in only, I think, 4 months. So Jim forwarded my request to his wife, Cheryl, who then reached out to me and said, would you like to come on and talk about World Youth Day Spain, Madrid, 2011? And I said sure, why not, because if that's how the word was going to get out through me, I would do it. But that wasn't my intention. I didn't really want to get on the radio. I was happy with my job in campus ministry. But as time went on, I just slowly got more involved in the radio apostolate. And I guess I feel like as I got more involved, I realized that it was something in my heart that, in a sense, I wanted, but I never really discovered. I love talking to people. I love sharing about God and the faith. And it just kind of fit with personality and the gifts that God gave me, and I'm just really grateful that a job opened up and I was able to come here and work here.
I got involved in the radio station kind of a funny way as well. So I studied communication at Monmouth University, and I had a concentration in radio, and a friend of mine, his mom told me once before, oh, you have to start listening to this Catholic radio station, because I'm from Pennsylvania, and I was like, oh yeah, so I started listening, and graduated, and I had a bunch of different jobs, and so I really wanted to work for a Catholic radio station, or anything like that. So I had applied here and came in and interviewed, and it went really well, but at the time they weren't able to hire for another full-time position, so just kind of did a little bit of work here and there. And I really didn't like the job that I had at the time, and I kept praying, and a friend of mine had said, if God isn't changing your situation, it's because you didn't learn your lesson yet. So I kept asking God. I said, okay, teach me the lesson, because I'm ready to get a new job. And Gabriella actually would always tell me about her adoration hour, because she had a perpetual adoration chapel at her parish, and my parish had just begun a perpetual adoration chapel as well. So I'm sitting in Mass one day, and I really didn't have this job that I had. I would work weekends and during the day, during the week, all the time. And so Mass was probably my favorite time, because it was an hour that I could just be present with God and not have to worry about anything. And our pastor had said, okay, look at the end of the pew. I pulled a piece of paper up, and it was for our chapel to take a holy hour. So I said, okay, I'll take a holy hour when I have more time, once I get a new job and all that. And I looked up at the crucifix, and I said, Jesus, is this what it is? Is this what's in the way? You want me to take a new holy hour? So I said, okay, well, the only time I can sign up is, what time that I'd be sleeping. So from 12 to 1 in the morning was the holy hour that I took. And after I took the holy hour, maybe like 3 or 4 days later, Gabriella called me and said that they had a position available open at the radio station. So that's a little bit of how I got started and came here. And my background was in radio, and I had 12 years of Catholic school, so God kind of just meshed it all together.
I like that we're able to communicate the gospel, that we're able to use the equipment, the technology to spread the word of God, to bring the joy of the gospel, as Pope Francis refers to it, to literally, potentially millions of people every day. And that we know that we're doing work for the church and for the Lord, and that the Holy Spirit works through us to touch hearts and minds. And we receive regular correspondence, phone calls from people in the course of our week who tell us that their lives have changed because of that. So that's the best part. We know that we're bringing people closer to Christ through the work that we do.
So my responsibilities here at the radio station are very varied, and that just comes with the territory of working for a nonprofit. You learn to wear many hats. But I'm happy because I like diversity. So a couple of things that I kind of, when I think about my job overall, is there's different aspects. There's the on-air aspect. There's the outreach aspect, I guess you could say. On-air, outreach, and prayer. I take care of the chapel. I schedule masses. And we pray there regularly. That's part of our work. We're not just a radio station. We're also a prayer apostolate for our listeners and benefactors. So working with, just taking care of the chapel and what that entails. The outreach aspect is really the reason why I was hired in the first place. They needed someone to go out to parishes to spread the word about Catholic radio. So about 2 weekends per month, give or take. I visit different parishes in our listening area and speak after all the masses, and then we attend different events throughout the year where potential listeners could be there for networking purposes and really to bring more souls to Christ through Catholic radio. So twice a week I go on the air with Jim. We have a 2-hour show on Mondays and Fridays, so we have to do the prep work for that, schedule the guest, I pick out different songs to play, and just different topics to go over.
My job and responsibilities here at the radio station, I'm the volunteer and liaison manager. So I manage all of our volunteers and liaisons to different parishes. We have a parish liaison program where we try to have one liaison, one volunteer, act as a link between their parish and the apostolate to kind of help us grow in a relationship with the different parishes that we serve and to find different ways to connect to the parishioners in hopes that, not only will they grow closer to Christ and to God but then also grow in their parish life and their parish family and community. So I'm in charge of all of our liaisons and volunteers, and it's a lot of fun. I do a little bit of production work as well because that's, again, what I studied in college, and then I get to do a little segment on air on Mondays with Jim and Gabriella on their program, Monday Live.
When I think about what I like best about working at the radio station, so many things come to mind. I think about the opportunities it's given me to grow closer in my faith, and I guess that's why I'm here, really, because God saw that it would benefit not only my soul, but the souls that I would touch through this work. So those opportunities were going to Rome and traveling. That's the fun part, Who doesn't want to go to Italy, meet the Pope, which has happened 3 times. Not personally, just really close, 5 feet away. But I think I enjoy hearing the stories of how the work impacts other people. So especially when I go to different church events and I hear people tell me that they went back to confession because they heard something on the radio and they heard Jim and I talking about it. Or people that have questions answered about their faith just by listening to some of our programs, that it becomes a solace for people that are grieving, with the loss of a loved one, and they listen to Catholic radio. So I guess it's very fulfilling when you go out and you hear how the work is touching other people. I do enjoy being on air. I love taking care of the chapel. I love working with the people that I work with here. There's just too many to count, too.
I had come before this job from probably about 2 jobs that I really, really did not enjoy and were very difficult for me. So to come here, I think the best part about this job and the radio station that it's brought my life so much peace and joy. I've grown so much closer to God than I ever thought possible. Before I started here, I thought I had a really great relationship with God, which I did. But since I started working here, I really started to actually learn more about Jesus and, who is Jesus in my life. I've watched my family start to experience more peace and joy because they started listening to the station once I started working here. Being able to go to daily mass has changed my life, and when you get to work in a building where you have the Blessed Sacrament in the next door over is something that, again, I had never experienced before, and probably one of the greatest blessings we could have. Coworkers and, a boss that understand and are patient and you just have a lot of fun with. So I think that's probably the best thing that, I love most is the peace and the joy that I've received from being here. And I'm just very, very blessed to be here. It's a lot of fun, and I actually get up and look forward to going to work every day, which is something that a lot of people don't get to experience. So, and you get to serve God in your work. It helps give it purpose and meaning.
Well, it's going to have to go on beyond me. So, again, we just kind of put it in God's hands. I'm very interested in engaging young people in this work, as I have 2 young women who work with me now who are in their 20s, and we bring in interns. We young interns. I think it's important that these young people, young Catholics especially, continue the vision that Mother Angelica had, that I had, to continue using technology to communicate the gospel. So God will take care of that. I'll be here for as long as He wants me here, and when it's time to retire, He'll let me know. But I'm sure the work will be passed on to other people who can do the same thing. I think technology is changing so fast that radio is going to change as well. You know, we have many different means of communicating now, and through podcasting and streaming audio and things that people can use, where maybe 10 years from now you won't need 250-foot towers out in the backyard to broadcast, but we'll still have a need for verbal communication, visual communication. I would suggest that, just those of you who have the gifts and the talents, and anyone who has an interest in this, to study it. There are certainly many good colleges and universities that provide opportunity for that, as I went to Seton Hall University. And just use the skills and the gifts that God gave you in whatever format you want to go into, in radio or television or communications, and do that, because it's very powerful. Media is very powerful, and we want it to be a powerful source of truth in all things, not just in religion but also in secular. So I would suggest anybody interested, go for it, and it's a fun way to work.